three other lovely, fine human beings here. Suicide Noted podcast, Suicide Noted live stream. You know, it's almost 5 years. 5 years I started the podcast. I am very proud of this work. We recently expanded to do a live stream in part because, well, YouTube and other platforms are pretty powerful, and we're inviting more than one person at a time, and we're having different kinds of conversations. And today we are having a conversation that comes up all the time in the podcast. I've got some very strong opinions about it. Many people do. I think there's a lot of myths and misconceptions about it. I also think they do some very important and good work. So we're talking about, I'm going to call them psych units. Other people might say mental health facilities. There's a few different ways to say it. And we'll figure out today if we're talking more short-term or long-term. This is a big conversation, and there's probably going to be another day in the next week or so where we're going to have a second part to this. So just know that. Finally, assuming I didn't screw up the settings, if you are watching this now, you should be able to comment. I should be able to see that, and I would be happy to answer or ask our guests your question in YouTube land. So, Ambient, hi.
Hello.
What country are you in, Ambient?
I'm in Alberta, Canada.
Oh, all right. M, hi.
Hi.
Where are you?
I'm from Iowa in the USA.
Cool. My name is Sean. I'm in North Carolina. And the reason I'm introducing Carrie, also our neighbor to the north, is that I asked Carrie to help us out with asking some questions that were generated by a handful of people about this topic. So muchas gracias. Thank you, Carrie. I want to hear what you have to ask. Let us roll.
All right. Great. So I'm just going to start at the top of our list and ask, what is a message you would like to give doctors, nurses, or people working in the institutions? That is a question from Ambient. Ambient, do you want to start us off?
Oh my goodness. Maybe not. I have so much. I can't narrow it down to one thing.
That's telling, right?
Yeah, for sure. I think maybe if I had to pick one, just like the message that I am human, so please be kind. Yeah, that's probably, if I had to just go general and broad, that's what I would pick.
That's a good one. Did you want to add to that, Em? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I think I would say just because I'm depressed and have suicidal thoughts doesn't mean I'm crazy. It doesn't mean I can't. I'm incapable of producing rational thoughts. And I think I would also say that suicidality can't necessarily be fixed with a 72-hour hold and some medications. And like if that's their expectation for you to be healed at discharge, then that's a poor expectation on their part.
And I just want to add, and then I want to answer the question and respond to both M and Ambient. Whether it's us here or anybody who happens to be listening, please push back or disagree. I mean, hopefully respectfully, but we don't all have to agree on this, and we won't. In this case, I do. Can you ask the question again? Because I'm like a weird word guy.
Yeah. Is there a message that you would like to give to doctors, nurses, and people working in the institutions?
I mean, as simply as I can say is I imagine most of you got in it for good reasons. Some of you are no longer in it for the right reasons. I hope you quit your job tomorrow. I wish I could be more hopeful and say you're going to change and think about this. That does work. I'm obviously being a little tongue-in-cheeky, but I think many of you are doing damage. Short leash. That's it. I'm simple. That's mine.
I agree.
I like
So
that.
wait, Canada and USA were kind of agreeing because we got 2 and 2.
Yes.
Right?
I'd love to add a little bit about that question. I think this is, in a perfect world, which doesn't exist, but I would love the opportunity to sit down with people in those positions without the power imbalance situation and actually ask them questions about, do they think what they're doing is working? And questions like, around that type of thing. What is it about what they're doing that they actually think is working? How do they sleep at night after a shift knowing that what they did isn't working and that it actually is inherently violent? Like, I'd love to be able to sit down and ask questions like that.
I'm going to just raise my hand, but I absolutely want you to continue if you want, because it reminds me of something larger that could be its own separate conversation about how, for somewhat understandable reasons, people present at work or around certain people versus if you were to pull them aside and just be at a coffee shop. Because I've had that, right? Like at work, whether it's explicit or implied, like you're being the person who's not very good at your job. But then whatever the situation, they know sometimes, or they complain about the system, but then they have to play the game because it's their job and they're getting paid and they're, I don't have an answer for that. It's just like, because I am so loving, not always in my life as best as I want, but in the podcast, like no bullshit transparency. It's like, that's so hard for me. So I'm on board. And by the way, I just want to let everyone know I've been in 2 hospitals. It's meant just help contextually. One when I was in my mid-30s, and it was for a long weekend, and one when I was in my 40s for a little bit longer. Both on the sort of short stay side, both mostly designed so it's hard to kill yourself and maybe change up your med some, but that's about it. Whereas I don't know, you all may have been in longer or different. So complete.
I was just thinking of something else, if I can share that. I think often things get misconstrued because they think that the treatment for suicidality should be the same for every patient, whereas suicidality isn't necessarily the illness. The illness is depression or whatever diagnosis may be underneath it. And so you can treat depression, sure, but you can't necessarily cookie cutter treat suicidality the same way because people are suicidal for different reasons. And I would like to tell doctors that as well.
Good point.
That's an amazing point, because I bet you there's hundreds of reasons somebody could be ideating chronic pain, illness that's treatment resistant, those kinds of things too, right? Like grief, there's so many reasons. And yet you're right. There's a very like finite protocol that kicks into place that's the same for everybody, no matter what your issue is.
Mm-hmm.
And that feeling of power imbalance, like you're just reduced down to this, like just nothing to be treated in that tiny little box. I wanted to share quickly a stat. I was able to sit in on I'm going to university, so sometimes like I sneak into different departments just because I'm interested in a topic. So I sat in on this talk that was about a study being done about how people are treated in my little region, which is about 150,000 people that are served by this. It's called Interior Health Authority. And they did a study between January and June, and they discovered that 4,500 people visited our ER specifically for suicide. So that's January, February, March, April, May, June, 6 months. And in a town of 150,000 people, 4,500 people visited for suicide. And what they're hoping to do with this study is to change the way people are treated when they get triaged. And another stat they came up with was 7 in 20 people that visited our ER were there for mental health. So I assume probably suicidality, because usually you don't go to the hospital like for all mental health issues, it's usually just for suicide. So I thought those stats were kind of interesting. And the fact that there's this group of people at the university, I think they're like doctors and nurses in training, that are hoping to change the way people get treated in our emergency room.
Those stats are incredible. And yeah, we need more of those kinds of groups of people for sure.
Can I ask a question, not knowing a whole lot about what healthcare looks like in Canada? I mean, I know it's government funded, correct? So I was just curious, and this kind of plays into the question coming up about how did you get in and how did you get out, but how does triage look in your guys' healthcare up in Canada?
Oh, we could do a whole chat just about that. Where to even start? One of the things about having universal health care is your choices are reduced down to almost nothing. You don't get to choose who your doctor is. You don't get to choose the type of care. And because our Canadian healthcare system is so overburdened, the few people that you come into contact with over these issues are, in my experience, are often really angry, just not care focused. They're just, you're just a number, and they're frustrated with you because you're a selfish suicidal patient. You don't have a legitimate concern like an acute illness or whatever. You don't have a gunshot wound or whatever. You are just, again, my experience was I felt like I was the scum of the earth every time I've been in emergency departments. And also as a result of that, you're the last person to be seen after all the other issues that come in are dealt with. You are the last person on the priority list.
I basically
really
had the same
no, you go.
experience. Yeah.
Sorry, I couldn't hear. Ambient, were you saying that you had a similar experience?
Yes, I basically share the exact same experience. And for me, once specifically the emergency room, that triage happened. They dealt with the physical stuff. It was a weekend. So they're like, well, we don't have any psychiatric doctors here on call. So you have to just wait until Monday and then we'll talk to you. And like, well, I'm not going to just sit here listening to the behind the curtain comments about me until Monday to see somebody. So I just left. Yeah, so they definitely not a priority in that situation for sure.
Have you ever had the experience where you're not allowed to leave, but you're sort of being held in a really difficult condition, kind of space where you're not being seen by anybody, you're not getting food and water, that kind of stuff?
I personally have not had that experience, but I've heard others that have. Yeah.
I can speak to that.
Okay.
So in the US, similar to what Ambient said, like you get triaged pretty quickly. Like they want to make sure you're not going to be able to do anything while you're waiting to harm yourself. And so they pretty quickly take you back and at least put you in a safe room. But in my case, like we have such a mental health crisis, either in our state or in our country, probably, where there's just not enough room in psych units to go around for all the people who are waiting in emergency rooms. I work in a hospital, and I know that we have a specific triage level just for people who are like basically waiting to either go somewhere else or be admitted, and it's called boarders. They're just boarders. They're boarding in the ED. And during that time, you really don't get much contact with any medical professionals if as long as you're medically stable. Um, Basically, they just like, yeah, sometimes it can take 24 hours, it can take 2 days. Um, and I have been in situations where, or most of the time, at least in the United States, if you say you're suicidal, they're not going to allow you to sign yourself out. That's just not a thing. So once you're in, and you're just stuck there. And it's often a terrifying experience.
Yeah, go ahead, Sean. You're muted. You're muted. You're having tech issues with that, with your mic.
Yeah.
There you go.
I'm clearly getting too old to use basic technology. However, I just want to add to what some of you have said. My biggest issue, the first time I went in, it was just you walked in and you're in. And in my particular case, it was legit. Sorry if this is offensive. Sort of one flew over the cuckoo's nest vibe. And my sister was with me, and she knew what I was going through. And she's like, "You totally don't belong here." Long weekend, make the best of it. It actually did turn out that they put me on anti-anxiety meds that really did help. So I would say ultimately worth it. The second one, several years later, what I found weird about the ER, just a couple comments. What the strangest thing I find about it is the lack of just simple communication, at least in my experience. Like, I know you don't have enough beds, big conversation for another day, because that's pretty fixable. I know you're trying to underpaid, under-resourced, all this stuff. But most of the time, it wouldn't be that hard, I don't think, to say, Sean, I tell you, I need tomorrow. You had a bed, probably, like. And in my case, it was total silence. And I'm like,
your mic is I think your mic is muffling. Did your phone drop onto something?
No. Can you hear me better now or no?
No. I can hear you, but it's like muffled. It's like under a blanket.
You guys talk, I'll figure it out.
That's weird. I don't know what happened there. I was really interested in what you're saying, though. That was actually one of the questions we could talk about was, did your stay help? So, but maybe we should back up before we say that. Do you either or Ambient feel like giving like a short story about an experience that you've had, and then we could answer the question of, did your stay help? Do either one of you feel led to talk about that?
I can. I can share a little bit about. I think I'll share about last year, last fall. I wasn't in a great place. I had been honest with my outpatient treatment team, and they ended up getting together and going to the courthouse and filing a court order without telling me, because they were afraid if they told me, I would have tried to do something. So then at 4 a.m, one day, the police come banging on my door, and they hold out the court papers, and they're like, "We have orders to take you into custody, to take you to the county hospital." They're like, and then I was like crying and like asking questions, and they're like, we can't answer any questions. Our job is just to be the transporters. And I was like, okay, well, do I have any like choice? And they're like, no, you have to come with us. And so 4 a.m, I get taken by police car about 30 minutes away to the county hospital, and I'm held there, and I don't really get much communication throughout the day. But then what happened was I got out and my treatment team didn't like that and they went and filed another court order because they knew I was lying to the doctor. Same thing happened again. This time I got sent to one of our psych hospitals here in the area and was literally going to have a court date in order with a lawyer in order to get out. So that's my most recent experience with a psych unit. Yeah,
Wow.
my lawyer did end up getting me out, but it was scary.
Wow. Thanks for sharing that. That does sound scary. So needless to say, the question, did your stay help? I'm guessing the answer is probably a short no.
I mean, the thing was, yeah, no, it didn't. I mean, if anything, I feel like every time I get sent to a psych unit, it makes me even more determined to say whatever I need to say and not tell anyone about how I'm feeling in order to make sure it never happens again, which is the exact opposite of how it should be, in my opinion. So, no. I'm not really sure, honestly, if I've ever had an inpatient stay help me as with like, of course, they kept me alive, but beyond that, I'm not sure that there was any real lasting mental or emotional benefit and potentially even more lasting trauma, I would say.
Yeah, you bring up an interesting point that I feel like the criteria on the part of the system is that they feel it's successful if they kept you alive. But the patient, our needs are more nuanced than that and different than, that's a really interesting point that you brought up there.
Carrie, can you hear me okay, or am I still muted?
Sean, you're still muffled.
Let me try to take this out.
Maybe send me a chat and I'll. Oh shoot, it's not letting me read your chat.
While he's doing that, my stays were very, very short, so I don't really think I can comment on a lot, but they were just in ER. I never did get admitted. So the first one, my experience was I was a minor at the time, technically. So I had attempted, obviously they had to notify my parents. So when that happened, they treated the physical stuff. At that point, because of my parents' beliefs, they're like, you don't need to be here. Like, mental health, like, you're fine. Everything's fine. We want to take you home. So they did. And at zero time was I asked by a doctor or a nurse if I wanted any help or if I wanted to stay. So that was one experience. And then the other one was, again, pretty short. But what I have found is there was a situation recently where I was acutely suicidal, drove myself to the hospital, could not go in. I could not, the trauma from those instances, I could not walk into the hospital pre-attempt to utilize that safeguard. So I think that's another thing that people maybe don't realize is not only are you not helping the people that do come here, but also, yeah, people are just, they're not going to come back. And that showed up in a very real way for me. Yeah.
Yeah, that's profound. The PTSD. I mean, I know we throw that whole thing around a lot in the zeitgeist lately, but that is really, really important to note what you just said.
Yeah, I mean, I guess they could argue that that stay where I didn't even walk in was successful because I just sat in the parking lot for about 6 hours and then went back home. So I didn't attempt, but yeah. So, I mean, in their terms, it worked anyway.
Testing.
Sorry.
Hey, let me break the microphone live. Just real quick. I know this is not fun for someone to throw on a live stream, but like, you can't even hear me on my regular laptop's audio.
Did you unplug your external mic? Try unplugging your mic and see.
Stuff, right?
Say again.
Hello.
I can kind of hear you, but it sounds like you're underwater. Did you unplug your external mic? It's unplugged right now completely.
Yeah, one more try. Can you hear me?
And is your laptop like sitting on anything? Okay, we'll just keep chatting. Yeah, Ambient, that's amazing.
Typing.
I can hear you typing. I feel like, Ambient, that was amazing that you drove yourself to the hospital, and just like taking that time you needed in the car was more helpful than actually going into the hospital, where it caused you post-traumatic stress.
Isn't that insane? Yeah.
Yeah, makes total sense to me though.
I also find it completely crazy that the first time you went, they didn't even ask you how you were or anything like that. Like, that's just insane to me, and that never should have happened. I'm so sorry. What do you think you would have said if they did ask you, though? Is what I'm curious about.
I mean, it would have, hindsight is difficult, right? But I think it would have entirely depended upon if they asked me while I was alone or while my family was present. If alone, I probably would have been truthful, because being my first attempt, not successful, being very sick, and now the guilt and stuff, like I did not want that to happen to me again. So I did want the help, I think, in that moment. But parents around, they don't really believe in it. I wouldn't have fought for that in their presence, I don't think.
I think that makes sense. I'm sorry that A, you didn't get that opportunity, and B, that you didn't feel comfortable sharing that in front of your parents.
Yeah. One of the things about my experience that I realize is kind of like different than a lot of people that, you know, are in our group or that might be listening, is that I'm 59 and my first hospital stay was when I was 20. So I also have the experience of seeing the way the system has kind of evolved over many years. The first time I went in, I was instantly drugged with something that it was against my will, and I don't know, to this day, I don't know what it was that they gave me, but it made me extremely disoriented and sedated. And then I was taken into a room with a psychiatrist who, at that time, the town I lived in was way smaller. Like, I don't know how much smaller, but like maybe 50 to 70,000 people. So we had a really tiny psych unit, and there was only one doctor in the whole area, psychiatrist. And he was later found to be, I don't know, criminally negligent. But anyway, the trauma from that experience stays with me. Like, I just, even talking about it, I can feel myself shaking, because I was taken into a room with him. In those days, everybody smoked indoors. So I was taken into this cigarette smoky little dark office with this man who was later charged with a whole bunch of things. And he was the one who drugged me. And then I had to sit in a chair, like looking across his desk at him while he was talking to me. And I don't remember too much of that, but I do remember him being angry that I couldn't carry on the conversation, which now I look back and I think I was a 20-year-old young woman, who'd been sedated against her will, held against her will, and he was forcing me to sit up straight and talk to him when I was like passing out from whatever drug he gave me. So that was my first experience. And the reason they put me there was I didn't know any better, but I took a big bottle of aspirins, which at the time I had no idea wasn't going to be effective for what I was hoping it to be effective for. But I thought it was probably just going to burn my internal organs, that much acid. So I just look back on that situation and I think, the thing that I chose as my, drug of choice wasn't going to actually take my life. And B, that I was clearly somebody who needed, some care and attention, that was going through some stuff that got me there. I wasn't just there because I was suicidal. I was suicidal because there was stuff going on, right? So, yeah, I look back to that. I have to do a lot of self-forgiveness about those kinds of scenarios that I went and got into.
Carrie, can you hear me a little better?
Yeah, a little bit.
All right, I'm going to be as loud as I can. It may be the last thing I say. I apologize for the tech stuff. Still working it out. And thank you for hosting. And we're going to continue going. I just want to say a few things in general. Experience with the podcast, personal experience, hearing what you're saying. And I feel like being rather, let's say, borderline assertive. You are all so nice. Like, you're kind. I think we need to offset this with a little assholes. So here we go. A lot of these places are really good and do really good work. However, most are not. A lot of these places are dangerous. Now, you might be thinking as you hear this, like you're embellishing. It's an occasional thing. Maybe yourself, you're a little crazy. Incorrect. A lot of the experiences for people, in part including me for some of this, even if it's done well, is traumatic. And I know we use that word a lot. I think it's way more common than people think. I think the problem is nobody's going to listen to you. Like, for example, I won't use a particular organization, but just choose any big organization that tends to probably get some good funding. And one of the things they talk about is if you're in trouble, if you need help, go to one of these places. Do you think they're going to start talking about all the things they're doing wrong? No. So I don't have exact numbers, but I promise you, fucking sue me if you can prove me wrong for everything I'm wrong. It is so much more rampant. US, Canada, can't speak for other countries, but in the countries I've spoken to and those people, by and large, it's very, very similar. Sorry, I'm almost done. I'm tired of the fucking gaslighting that you're putting on the same people who are in pain. Now, I don't know if this is going to go anywhere because our audience is probably mostly on board, but especially when you were speaking, Harry, I was wondering if somebody happened to stumble upon this. I wonder what their very first reaction is when they hear some of the things you were saying about that guy. Because I wouldn't be surprised if some of it was disbelief. And all of that together, and a ripple effect, because I'm not telling my friends to go to this local hospital. You start to add it all up, and there's just these problems, some fixable, some not. On the record saying some of this is certainly one of the reasons or the exacerbated reasons that not only people are suffering, but that they actually end their life. Happy whenever you want, if you want to email me about that. I'll give you my phone number. You can come to Chapel Hill and take a note. Because you know, you got to talk about it. Shutting up now. Thank you for listening.
So something that Sean said that made me kind of remember an experience I had. Just the fact that we would do anything and everything just to not be hospitalized and go through all of that bad stuff. Like, this wasn't my most recent, it wasn't my first hospitalization, but it was somewhere in the middle. And I had attempted, and I was basically in the emergency department. They were still evaluating whether or not they were going to admit me. And I was advocating hardcore. I was like, don't admit me. I'm fine. I can figure this out. They come and tell me that no, they're going to admit me. And I freak out so much that literally the only thoughts in my head were, I guess this is how it ends then, because I am not going to be admitted. And I tried to hurt myself. I'm not going to say how, in the hospital room. And they caught me. But still, I just can't believe that that was my first thought, that like I was like, it switched from, okay, I survived this attempt, now what, to, okay, I really have to end this because I can't stand another few days in the hospital. So it's just crazy to me.
Yeah. Wow. I think that really speaks to like just our humanity overall, that being like, to have suicidal ideation is a form of like being trapped, you know. It's like you don't get there because life is unicorns and lollipops, right? You get there because you're trapped in some version of difficulty in your life, right? So then they say, well, we're going to trap you into a smaller space now where you have even less control over your life and less say in your wellness, less advocacy for yourself, and expect you to be better. Like, hello. That I don't get. Just, yeah, what you said just made me think about one of the things that makes us most human is the value of freedom, right? The value to be free, whatever that looks like. And maybe that's the remedy for anything that ails you, is how do you find freedom from these versions of entrapment that the world wants to put us in? Just looking for the next question. If anybody has one that you are particularly guided to, let me know. I'm just looking through our list.
And Carrie?
Yeah?
Now there is, again, I apologize for my audio. We put together a lot of questions. So whenever you feel like we're kind of complete for the day, we're going to do another one fairly soon. So you, Am, or Ambient, when you kind of want to wrap up, I'm game either way. I'm mostly just listening and enjoying the conversation. Okay? Just know that we'll have some more time.
Yeah, that's a good idea, because we've covered a little bit of ground. I just, maybe the last question we could just ask each of us to say a few words if there's anything that you wanted to add to what we did talk about today. If there's anything you want to say, like in closing, because I can't think of anything more specific on that for today. But Ambient, did you have anything you wanted to close us off with?
Not really. I've noticed this conversation has increased my blood pressure because the problems are so systemic and so deep and prevalent that it's really tough. So I'm very interested for a part 2 to hear other people's experiences and dive a little deeper into some more of this. If you have any friends that work in healthcare, maybe just, give them some tips on what not to do. That's all I've got. Thank you.
Awesome, thanks.
I will also add to that ambient and say that my anxiety has also gone up quite a bit. And piggybacking off of that, as someone who does work in the healthcare system, but not in that certain field, it is really frustrating to be like, I could have maybe a say as a professional, but I still carry around that kind of sense of voicelessness from being a patient, if that makes any sense. And it's really, really a strange thing because one of our ER doctors is someone who saw me after my last serious suicide attempt. And it's just really strange to see his name pop up and see his orders come through. And I'm just like, I wonder what I would tell him. And just, I think about it sometimes, but like, there's just, like Ambient said, it's so systemic, and I'm not really sure what the best solution is or if there is one. I'm sure there has to be one, but it's very systemic and deep rooted, and it's frustrating. So I guess that's all I have to add.
Oh yeah, do you want to go? I have one more thing to share, but go ahead.
I want you to finish it up.
Okay.
Just want to read something because I'm still figuring out this system they're using called Riverside. So sometimes people from outside they can message, which is great. So I hope I'm getting this right. Tours watching this somewhere, I think probably Anita, thanks to a thumbs up. I just wanted to read what Tor said. In some sense, a person with laryngitis or a tumor is a person with a problem. A person with a mental illness is the problem, not to be taken seriously or believed. I might have been missing some of the context. I just wanted to get the word.
The only thing I
need. Yeah.
Sorry, the only thing I heard you say was laryngitis. I didn't catch anything else that you said. Did you guys catch anything there?
Hey, Ambient, M, or Carrie, can you please read Tours comments? Sorry, my audio sucks.
Are you able to cut and paste that comment into our chat?
Okay.
Because I think you're the only one that can see the comments. Okay, got it. Can everybody see that, or should I read it? In some sense, a person with laryngitis or a tumor, oh, I missed it. It popped down. Or a tumor is a person with a problem. A person with a mental illness is the problem, not to be taken seriously or believed. Wow. Yeah, I think you summed that up really, really well. It's true. Yeah, I knew what you meant.
There's also a really good, I believe it's on Button Poetry, a really good Button Poetry poem or spoken word about the psych ward, to use their words. I think it's called And the Psych Ward Says, and it's a really powerful thing to listen to, and very accurate as well. I just wanted to push that out there because
nice.
That really got me. Yeah.
That's cool. I just wanted to share one last thing with you guys. I too was feeling that anxiety or whatever it is, PTSD, emotional flashbacky kind of feelings from our talk, and maybe that's going to happen with all of these talks because it's just such a visceral experience for those of us that have been through it. But what I wanted to share is I've been studying my fine art degree at university, and my printmaking prof last year makes books that she submits to libraries all over the, like medical libraries. You know how teaching hospitals and things like that, they have these big fancy medical libraries. And she showed us this story of a woman who'd been through cancer treatment, who started making artist books, kind of like zines. Like they're not, you don't have to be an artist, is what I'm trying to say. You don't have to do anything fancy, but this woman who was going through cancer treatment was documenting her experience and how the medical staff was just treating her like an object, like just like poking the things into her veins and, you know, rushing in, rushing out, like changing shifts and just not introducing themselves. Like she was just felt like an object. So she started to keep a comprehensive journal with, you know, doodling and anecdotes and quotes that people had, things they had said to her. And toward the end of her treatment, she compiled these into a series of books, which were then bought by some medical libraries. And they're in the libraries with the sheer intent of having medical staff see what cancer treatment is like from the patient perspective, not from their training perspective or their professional perspective, because a lot of those people won't have that experience as a patient. They only have it from their little narrow viewpoint of being, you know, a nurse or a technician or whatever. And so it made me think a lot about how valuable our experiences are for making change in the system. And I also know personally in my own journey of, you know, probably 50 years of suffering and being in the system and trying to get help and to be heard and things like that, that making art, messy, crazy, effed up art, has been the best therapy that I've ever had. And I think a lot about now after seeing these books, I think about how profound a series of artist books might be, or zines or something like that, if we can get them out. You know, write down everything, even if you think it's insignificant. Write down your experience in a journal, you know, draw a doodle, like whatever that looks like for you. Maybe it's a needlepoint. There's a really awesome Instagram feed called the Tiny Pricks Project, which I highly recommend. And it's needlepoint, and the person needlepoints some really hilarious quotes that, like, it looks like granny art on doilies, but the quotes will be really, really like profound and, you know, sometimes cursing and things like that. So whatever that looks like for you, I think creativity and getting our stories out there to the people that are supposed to be providing healthcare could be really important. So I just wanted to share that in closing. And thanks for the discussion, everybody.
Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. That was a good idea. Thank you. Have a great day.
Peace out.